Welcome to the Gold Newsletter Podcast, your bank of knowledge of investments, economics, and geopolitics. Go to goldnewsletter.com for our publications and archives to increase your wealth monetarily and educationally.
This is Fergus Hodgson with the Gold Newsletter Podcast. Always my pleasure to be with you. Thanks for your loyal support. The podcast has been going for almost 2 years now, which I can hardly believe. Time has flown by, and I really enjoy doing these. So we try to give some attention to the mining sector as somewhat of a niche topic or field for us within our broader focus on finance and capitalism. And I noticed someone a couple of months ago who was working in the field. I noticed her just material online, and her name is Karleigh Middlemiss. She is a human resources specialist, the HR and office coordinator at IDM Mining, and a Canadian from Toronto, now in Vancouver. So I thought we'd have her on to discuss why Vancouver is head and shoulders above any other city in the world for mining. Not that the actual speculating or getting to work, but for corporate locations. And then what her role has been in pairing people up who want to actually work, who want to go beyond focusing on it or reading about it and investing in it, but actually want to make it a profession. So I'm so pleased. Karleigh, welcome to the Gold Newsletter Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I said, just in our correspondence that I was just curious to hear your story, because it's not, this is the mining sector is not necessarily prominent. So people end up in it, I guess, either through family connections or through just luck. So which of the two was the case with you?
So I was actually born into a mining family. I was born in Sudbury and raised in Kirkland Lake, Ontario. My father is a mining engineer, but we eventually moved to Toronto as his career progressed. So I spent my summer jobs at the mine site, working a variety of different jobs in the assay lab, in the warehouse, a field worker. So I was exposed to it from a young age and continued to be exposed to it as my career progressed.
Right, and what appealed to you about continuing on and following your father's legacy then?
I would just say I like junior mining. I feel like it's a really good sense of community and family. It's not a very big group. It feels like you're a part of a team. Actually,
that's one thing I'll note, that because it is a smaller collection of people, there can be more of a community sentiment. We put on the New Orleans Investment Conference each year, and it's the same faces that'll be back for decades, actually. I mean, I've not been around in the field for decades, but many people have. It does build a community. Now, do you want to clarify what exactly your role is?
So I am working HR for IDM and also doing some office coordination.
Right, but I mean, when you say HR, how much are you willing to share as to what you do? I mean, how often is IDM hiring and firing, and how much turnover is there in the industry in terms of work? Is there a lot of loyalty, or people just move swiftly between different organizations and opportunities?
Well, it really depends on the mine site. For IDM, it's not accessed all year. It's not accessible all year. So it's lots of the field workers are seasonal, but there's many mining companies that are accessible all year. So I guess it just depends which one you work for.
Right. I'm looking at an article here which my lovely colleague Paz Gomez got together, titled "Vancouver is the world's mining capital." And I didn't realize this. I don't think people in Vancouver know that they're living in the mining capital. But actually, as I noted earlier, you've moved to Toronto, you moved from Toronto to Vancouver. And this website, mining.com, lists Vancouver as having 805 mining and junior prospecting companies. And the next best is Toronto, 300, so it has more than twice the other. So this is really, Vancouver is the hub, not just for Canada, but for the world of mining companies. So you're there. Why don't you tell us why this is the case? Why Vancouver has become the dominant home for this field, this industry?
Okay, well, I think that it definitely is the dominant place for many smaller and junior companies. exploration companies. And I think that's because the TSX Venture Board is based out of here. So it's facilitated a lot of growth in the smaller companies, opening offices here and stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that everybody likes to network and like have a sense of community and stuff. So I think that you want to be in the same pond as everybody, right?
True. Yeah, there's a synergy, of course. And what do you think? Is it just happenstance that Vancouver became this? Or is there something particular about the city?
Well, I think that just the fact that the TSX Venture Board is based out of here.
Yes, but when did that begin rolling? The TSX Venture, I'm not sure when that exactly started, but I assume that Vancouver was already a home prior to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know years ago that it started and it was a lot of penny stocks and stuff like that, but it's evolved a bit.
I see. And I follow Canada a lot, and I know that both Toronto and Vancouver even more so, has had this, I'm not sure whether you want to call it a housing crisis, but it's just notable that it's the most expensive place to live in Canada. And I guess given so much foreign demand for being there, has that, and the other, I'll just go down the list of the other major cities that have mining centers in terms of corporate centers. The next one, Toronto, then Perth, Sydney, Australia. So Australia is obviously a big mining center as well. Then London, Calgary, Melbourne, Montreal, and Johannesburg. Although Johannesburg only has 14 listed companies, so not really on the same level. And has there been a shift? I mean, has the rising cost of living both in Vancouver and just Canada more generally, has that had an impact on this, or is people just keep on queuing up to come to Vancouver?
Well, Fergus, I think that, it definitely does have a bit of weight on decisions with money because the rent is expensive here. And if you go downtown Toronto, the area is so much bigger than downtown Vancouver, like the financial district here. So not only is it more expensive, there's actually just less space as well. But I think that the workday, as we know it, like the standard workday is kind of changing. I feel like a lot of people are more comfortable with some of their employees working from home, checking in remotely, stuff like that. And a lot of, especially consulting companies, are having satellite offices in kind of surrounding areas like Kamloops or somewhere where their workers can be, and it's a lot less expensive. Somewhere where they can house their workers, and it's still pretty useful to them.
For more than 40 years, top financial experts and private investors from all over the world have gathered for the New Orleans Investment Conference to discover new opportunities and strategies, exchange ideas, and plan for the coming year. To learn more about today's investing environment and updates, join Mark Skousen, Peter Schiff, Brian London, Robert Kiyosaki, Doug Casey, and dozens of other experts at this year's event from the 1st to the 4th of November. Go to NewOrleansConference.com to register today.
Well, let me just say one thing positive about Vancouver too, though, that it is just a beautiful city and location. Lovely Stanley Park there, and you can see. I'm not sure whether you call the mountains around Vancouver the Rockies, because you're actually, I guess, a little bit away from the Rockies, but there are mountainous views just all over the place, and because of the awkward maybe shape of the harbor. Yeah, I guess there's not a lot of room in some ways to expand.
Exactly. The downtown's on a peninsula, so there's only so much room.
But it's a wonderful international place. And why don't you talk about that more, about the changing nature of the workplace that you deal with? How many people within your organization are you managing?
We are very small. It's kind of like a flatter organizational structure at IDM because the corporate office has not that many people, and especially right now with field season going on,
yes.
Some people that are in the corporate office, they're gone to site, so I just think the workday as we know it, like the standard workday as we know it changing, especially even with that, it's like, some of the people that are out working in the field maybe would be here in the winter, but they're out in the field for a couple weeks and then they take 2 weeks off. So yeah, just that changing.
What are the major competitors? Are any other cities that you know of actually actively seeking to dethrone Vancouver? I mean, my family, they go back in the Vancouver area. I mean, I'm sorry, in the Calgary area. And that my grandparents were Irish immigrants to Canada and made a long-term home there. And I just know that Calgary sees itself as the big, I guess, corporate center of Western Canada. And I wonder why there's not been a shift towards there.
I don't know. I think Vancouver's just a couple steps ahead, to be honest. I think that they probably have more international flights going to different parts of the world. Yeah, just more infrastructure for it. I think the fact that there are so many mining companies here, I don't know if somebody would be able to catch up.
Right. Yeah, you do work in HR, so what wisdom do you have? I mean, I assume you see many resumes, or have seen over your years in the field. What has stood out as, what characteristics have stood out for people who want to get into it that make them last, that make them satisfied in your experience?
So I think that the best thing that somebody could do who wants to get into the industry is to just continue diversifying their skill set as much as possible. You know, attend conferences, take certificate, online classes. The number of skills that you have displays your willingness to learn, and I think that that's really attractive to potential employers, and especially for students. Like these conferences, you get a reduced rate to go in them and go in them and network. You know, there's so many things during the day, presentations, and then there's mixers at night so that you can get to meet some of the people for first aid in that. If you take it through universities, then you also get a reduced rate at that. So I would just say, yeah, continue. And even throughout your career, continue to diversify your skill set. You know, learn another language, because a lot of mining companies don't just have properties in Canada or the USA. Like, people have properties in South America, and they're looking for somebody who can speak Spanish as well.
I see. So why have you continued on? You said you just enjoy the field, but there's someone with your experience, I assume many other opportunities in HR. Why are you staying in mining?
Like I said, I feel like I really know the industry, especially just from working summer jobs. I feel like I know it from the ground up, because I've worked at the site and at the corporate level. So I feel very comfortable with it, and I still feel like there's a lot of room to grow in it.
How is the industry evolving, though? You mentioned people, I guess, more remote work, but presumably this is a period of great change. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, I think with digital transformation, mining's a couple of years, not all mining companies, but a lot of smaller mining companies are a couple of years behind for that. So that's still happening, and it's pretty interesting, and they have a couple of years to catch up, I would say.
In just their communication strategies, or what do you mean?
I guess I mean a bit overall. Lots of things, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Verify, but they have, like 3D pictures and 3D videos of mine sites. So those sort of things, that became like a really big thing over the past couple of years for lots of mining companies. And those things went to other industries years ago, probably like 5 years ago. And it's kind of just becoming a thing in mining.
Why were the miners a bit slow to the race there?
I guess just focus on different things. Like, everybody cares about some things a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on what industry you're in. So if you're in something like retail or something like that, then you need flashy stuff to attract, customers and such. But I think mining, they don't rely on that as much.
Well, this would appear to me that there's a great deal of tradition within the industry, although you might not foresee that. And that because there's so much trust involved, new players or a great deal of change would interrupt maybe the trust or goodwill that is held between many people. Do you want to comment on that rapport that people have that's so crucial to gathering investment and succeeding in a project?
Yeah, I don't really know. I haven't worked too much in the investing, a little bit in investor relations here and there, but I guess, yeah, lots of investors, stick with companies for years, but there's also lots of switch outs as well. So I guess it just depends how you're doing that month.
Right. And how many years have you actually worked? You said you since you followed your father's footsteps, it's almost like as long as your professional career has been going.
I would say in total, I've worked about just over 3 years total in mining.
And what other maybe pieces of wisdom can you share with us that I've not extracted from you thus far, that maybe you didn't know before?
I would just say, I know I kind of already said this, but even there's so many mining associations that are, and like professional groups that you could network with to try to break into the industry. Like, you know, there's Women in Mining, there's CIM, there's all these opportunities for you to further yourself if you want to get into this industry.
Yeah, let me just add to that too. It may seem like a peculiar or difficult to understand industry, but the fact is that it's not closed at all. That it's a real meritocracy, in that if you want to go improve your capacity, there's a great deal of opportunity for someone who's willing to put in the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. Thanks so much for your time, and we will be in touch.
Okay, perfect.
Cheers.